Transmission 69 by Isaac Petrov. As Mark Danner settled into his chair, the office around him seemed to shrink in the dim light of the setting sun. The cluttered room bore the weight of forgotten stories, each object a relic of his relentless pursuit of the truth. Files, tapes, and paraphernalia littered his desk, a testament to his obsession with the unknown. Yet there was a comfort in the chaos, a familiar disarray that matched the cacophony of thoughts in his mind. Chapter 1. The Unmarked Package. It was the late summer of 1969, a period when the world was transfixed by the wonders of space exploration and the possibilities it held. The Cold War's shadow loomed large, and amidst the fervor of technological advancement, secrets were as abundant as stars in the sky. Mark's fingers trembled with a mix of anticipation and caution as he tore open the unmarked package. The plain brown wrapping fell away, revealing a dusty, reel-to-reel tape. It was an artifact from a bygone era, its presence in his office a mystery that demanded exploration. Probably just another prank, he mused, though a nagging curiosity urged him to play it. He carefully set the tape on his vintage player, the machine's mechanical hum filling the silent room. Static crackled through the speakers, and then a voice emerged, distorted and aged, yet authoritative. "This is Commander Ed Walker, reporting on the Apollo 20 mission." "Apollo 20? That can't be right," Mark whispered, his eyes widening in disbelief. Official records claimed there had been no such mission, yet the voice on the tape carried a conviction that was hard to dismiss. The voice continued, detailing a clandestine journey to the moon, describing landscapes and findings that defied everything Mark had ever read or heard. "We discovered structures, signs of life," the voice insisted, echoing with a sense of urgency and awe. "This has to be a hoax," Mark reasoned aloud, yet he couldn't shake the feeling that there was something genuine about the recording. Driven by a mix of skepticism and intrigue, Mark decided to feature the tape on his next podcast episode. He set up his microphone, adjusting the levels with the precision of a seasoned professional. "Welcome back to Echoes from the Unknown," he began, his voice steady and inviting. "Today, I have something truly extraordinary for you." As he played segments of the tape for his audience, he interjected with his own thoughts, balancing skepticism with curiosity. Could it be that NASA conducted secret missions to the moon? And if so, what did they find there? Listeners called in, their reactions a mix of disbelief and fascination.
This sounds like a great science fiction tale, Mark. But what if it's true? What if there's more to the moon than we know?
Mark smiled, feeling the familiar thrill of an unsolved mystery. He knew he had to dig deeper to uncover the truth behind the tape. "Stay tuned," he promised his listeners, because this is just the beginning. As he signed off for the night, Mark leaned back in his chair, staring at the tape that had ignited his curiosity. The office, once a room of chaos, now thrummed with the energy of a new quest. What secrets did the tape hold? And where would they lead him? With questions swirling in his mind, Mark knew one thing for certain: his journey into the unknown was just beginning. Chapter 2. Voices from the Void. Mark Danner sat in his dimly lit studio, the soft hum of equipment around him providing a comforting backdrop. The second tape, a relic from an era long past, lay on the desk like a taunting enigma. "All right, folks," he spoke into the microphone, his voice steady. "We have another piece of the puzzle today. Another tape arrived, just as mysterious as the first." He leaned back in his chair, adjusting his headphones, the leather creaking under the shift of his weight. "I'm going to play some excerpts for you, and then we'll dive into what all of this could mean." There was a slight pause as he adjusted the tape player, the spool beginning to rotate with an almost hypnotic rhythm.
"This is Commander Ed Walker, Apollo 20, Day 3 we've encountered."
The voice crackled, cutting out intermittently, leaving gaps that only deepened the mystery. "Did you catch that?" he asked, his excitement palpable. "He mentions Day 3 of a mission that officially never happened." Mark knew the power of suggestion and mystery. He had spent years honing the art of the narrative, knowing when to pull back and when to push forward. "What did they encounter? Why is this mission not in any official record?" He let the questions hang in the air, knowing that silence could often speak louder than words.
I want to hear from you, he urged. Call in, send messages. Let's dig through the NASA archives together.
As the tape continued to play, Mark shifted in his seat, preparing to introduce his next segment. I've invited a few guests today, experts in their own right, to help us dissect these fragments. The first call came through, the voice on the other end crackling slightly. Mark, it's Julian. I've been following your podcast, and I think you're onto something big.
Julian, glad to have you on. What do you make of this Apollo 20 mission?
It fits a pattern, Mark. There have been rumors of secret missions for years, artifacts found on the moon, things that NASA doesn't want us to know. Mark nodded. Even though Julian couldn't see him, the thrill of the chase invigorating.
What kind of artifacts are we talking about?
Structures, Mark. Structures that don't belong there. The implication hung heavily in the air, the idea of extraterrestrial life a tantalizing prospect. All right, Julian, let's explore that. What evidence do we have? The discussion continued, Mark expertly guiding the conversation, weaving it into the larger tapestry of his investigation. Listeners, this is where you come in. I want you to search through declassified documents, anything you can find that might shed light on this. As the episode drew to a close, Mark felt a renewed sense of purpose, the mystery of Apollo 20 pulling him deeper into its shadowy embrace.
This is just the beginning, he promised, his voice echoing into the silence of the studio. We'll uncover the truth together.
The tape continued to spin, secrets hidden within its fragile ribbon, as Mark prepared for the next chapter of his unfolding saga. Chapter 3: Echoes of the Past. Mark sat in the dim glow of his desk lamp, the shadows long and twisted on the walls of his small, cluttered office. The reel-to-reel tape recorder, a relic itself, was silent now, but it had left a profound echo in his thoughts. Before him lay a pile of yellowed papers, brittle with age, that he'd found in the attic just the day before.
Let's see what secrets you've been keeping, Grandpa, he murmured, carefully unfolding the first document.
The document was a letter, typed in a formal yet hurried manner, addressed to someone named Commander Walker. The date was July 1969. Mark's heart skipped a beat. This was the same time frame as the alleged Apollo 20 mission. This can't be a coincidence, he said aloud, reaching for his phone to snap pictures of the documents. As Mark sifted through the papers, he found what appeared to be his grandfather's journal. The pages were filled with cryptic notes, some in shorthand, others in a scrawl that spoke of secrecy and urgency.
Why would Grandpa be involved in something like this? He wondered, flipping to a page marked with an asterisk.
The entry read, "Met with Walker. Details of mission are classified beyond comprehension. Must ensure silence."
I need to know more, he declared, rising from his chair with renewed purpose.
The next morning found Mark on a plane to Houston, the headquarters of NASA, and he hoped, the key to unlocking his grandfather's past. The city buzzed with its usual energy, but Mark's focus was singular as he made his way to the NASA archives. The archives building loomed ahead, an imposing structure of glass and steel, holding secrets untold in its depths. Mark approached the reception desk, where a woman with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor greeted him.
Welcome to the NASA archives. How can I assist you today?
I'm looking to access some historical documents, specifically relating to the Apollo missions from 1969, Mark explained, choosing his words carefully. Do you have an appointment? I don't, but I was hoping someone might be able to help me. It's quite important. The receptionist eyed him critically, then sighed. I'll see if someone is available to assist you. Please take a seat. As Mark waited, he glanced around the room, filled with historical displays and photographs. A particular photo caught his eye, a group of astronauts, their faces obscured by shadows. One of them bore a striking resemblance to the man in his grandfather's photographs. Moments later, a woman approached, her demeanor professional yet approachable. Mr. Danner, I'm Laura Gray. I understand you're looking into the Apollo missions. Yes, that's right. I'm particularly interested in some lesser-known aspects, he replied, choosing his words with care. Lesser known? Let's talk in my office. Mark followed Laura through a maze of corridors, each lined with the silent history of space exploration. Her office was modest, filled with books and papers, a reflection of a mind steeped in knowledge.
So, what exactly are you hoping to find?
I recently uncovered some documents suggesting my grandfather may have been involved in a mission that doesn't officially exist. Apollo 20. Apollo 20? That's not something we usually discuss. I know it sounds unbelievable, but I have to find the truth, he insisted, placing the photographs and journal on her desk. Laura glanced at the items, her expression shifting from skepticism to intrigue. These are certainly interesting. There are stories, rumors really, of missions that never made it to the public eye, but proving them, that's another matter entirely.
Can you help me?
I can try, but you must understand accessing that kind of information is difficult, and it might not even exist in the way you think. Mark nodded, his resolve unwavering. Together, they began poring over the documents, Laura offering insights and connections that Mark hadn't considered. Your grandfather's notes mention a Commander Walker. That's a name I've heard in whispers. If he was indeed involved, it could mean there are records hidden away, classified beyond ordinary clearance. Then we need to find those records. The afternoon faded into evening as they worked, their efforts guided by the flickering hope of uncovering a truth long buried. As they pieced together the fragments, an unexpected camaraderie formed, bound by the shared pursuit of knowledge. We'll need to access the restricted archives, but it won't be easy, Laura cautioned, her eyes meeting Mark's with a shared understanding of the risks involved. I'm ready for whatever it takes, Mark replied, his voice steady with conviction. As they planned their next steps, the weight of history pressed upon them, a reminder of the mysteries that lay hidden in the echoes of the past. The chapter concluded with the two of them standing before the archive's secure doors, the promise of discovery just beyond, a testament to the lengths they were willing to go in search of the truth. Chapter 4. Whispers in the Shadows. The dim glow of the monitor cast long shadows across Mark's cluttered desk. A new email pinged in his inbox, the sender listed only as Echo. What do we have this time? Mark muttered to himself, clicking open the message with a mix of anticipation and dread. The email contained a set of coordinates and a redacted document, the black bars stark against the white background. Mark leaned back in his chair, tapping a pen against his lips as he considered the implications. The coordinates pointed to a remote area in the Nevada desert, a place he knew from whispered rumors and speculative forums. All right, Echo, he said aloud, let's see where this leads. The decision made, Mark spent the next few hours immersed in research, cross-referencing the location with everything he could find online. His podcast setup was forgotten, the microphone standing silent as the room filled with the rustle of paper and the soft clicks of the keyboard. As the evening wore on, an unsettling feeling crept over him. A prickle at the back of his neck, a sense that he was being watched. He shook it off, blaming too many hours staring at the screen. Later, as the clock ticked past midnight, Mark's paranoia reached a peak. He set up a small recorder by his window, its red light a silent sentinel in the darkness. His voice, usually so confident on his podcast, trembled as he recorded a brief message. This is Mark Danner. It's late, and I can't shake the feeling that someone's watching me. I've been getting these emails, and I don't know. Maybe I'm just being paranoid. He paused, listening to the silence of the night, then continued, his voice steadier. If you're hearing this, it means something's happened. Keep digging into Apollo 20. Don't let them bury the truth. The recording ended, and Mark sat back, the room eerily quiet. Outside, a shadow moved across the street, barely visible in the faint glow of the street lamps. Mark's eyes narrowed, his breath catching in his throat. Hours passed, but sleep eluded him. He lay in bed, eyes fixed on the ceiling, mind racing with possibilities. Every creak of the house, every rustle of leaves outside seemed magnified, feeding his growing unease. The next morning, Mark reviewed the late-night recording. As he listened, his own voice sounded foreign, tinged with fear he hadn't fully acknowledged. But then, something else caught his attention, a faint whisper, barely discernible beneath his own words.
What the hell? He muttered, leaning closer to the speaker.
The whisper repeated, clearer now, a voice he didn't recognize. Keep looking, Mark. Mark froze, the blood in his veins turning to ice. The warning seemed to pulse through the room like a living thing. its presence lingering long after the words themselves had faded. "Who are you?" he whispered to the empty room, his mind spinning with possibilities. "And what do you want from me?" Outside, a pale morning light seeped into the room, casting the space in a muted glow. Mark glanced out the window, eyes scanning the street for any sign of movement, any hint of the presence he had felt the night before. The email from Echo, the coordinates, the whisper, it all felt like pieces of an intricate puzzle, each one pulling him deeper into a world he barely understood. A world where shadows had voices and secrets were guarded by unseen forces.
All right, Mark said, his voice firmer now. If they want to send me on a wild goose chase, I'll give them a run for their money. He closed the recording meticulously, then stood, stretching the tension from his muscles.
By noon, Mark had packed a small bag, his mind set on following the trail laid out for him. He drove through the sprawling cityscape, the world outside his window a blur of motion and noise, his thoughts locked on the destination ahead. As the city gave way to the vast, empty stretches of highway, Mark's mind drifted back to memories long buried. His grandfather's stories, the tales of secret projects and hidden truths, had always seemed fantastical, an old man's ramblings, dismissed by everyone except Mark.
Those stories, Mark mused aloud to the car, they had more truth in them than we ever gave him credit for.
Growing up, Mark had spent countless afternoons listening to his grandfather's tales, his child's mind enraptured by the possibility of adventure and mystery. But life, with its mundane realities and silent pressures, had pushed those stories to the margins of his mind. Now, driving through the desert's embrace, he felt a pang of regret for the years when he could have asked more, learned more, but hadn't, for the times he had chosen the easy path, avoiding the complexity of the truth that his grandfather had hinted at. The road stretched on, the barren landscape a vast unbroken canvas of sand and sky. The coordinates led him to an old abandoned airstrip, forgotten by time, its edges frayed by the relentless desert winds. Mark parked at the edge of the strip, the car door creaking in the sudden stillness as he stepped out. The air was thick with heat, the sun a blistering eye overhead, watching his every move. "All right, let's see what you have for me," Mark murmured, his voice swallowed by the desert's silence as he made his way towards the crumbling buildings. The structures were relics of a bygone era, their surfaces worn and weathered, whispering tales of secrets long abandoned. Dust swirled at his feet, each step echoing in the emptiness. Inside, the air hung heavy with the scent of decay, mingling with the faint, metallic tang of forgotten machinery. Mark's flashlight cut through the gloom, revealing faded maps and cryptic notes pinned to the walls. In a corner, half buried beneath layers of dust, lay a metal chest, its surface pitted with rust. Mark approached cautiously, his heart pounding in his chest as he knelt to examine it. With a grunt, he pried the chest open, its hinges groaning in protest. Inside, he found folders of documents, yellowed with age, their margins scrawled with names and phrases that sent a thrill of recognition through him. There it was, the name Commander Walker, jumping out at him like a beacon amidst the chaos. As he leafed through the pages, a picture began to form, a clandestine operation, buried beneath layers of secrecy and deception. "This is it," Mark whispered, the weight of the discovery settling over him like a shroud. "This is what they didn't want anyone to find." The desert around him was silent, a vast, indifferent witness to the secrets it had sheltered for so long. Mark sat back on his heels, the gravity of his discovery pressing down on him with every breath. But beneath the weight, there was a flicker of resolve, a determination to see this through, to finally uncover the truth his grandfather had hinted at all those years ago, to lift the veil on a past that refused to stay buried. As the sun began its descent, casting long shadows across the desert floor, Mark knew he was on the cusp of something monumental, a revelation that could change everything if only he had the courage to follow it to the end. As twilight descended, the desert transformed into a haunting landscape, its vastness mirrored by the growing shadows that encroached upon Mark. The air cooled, carrying with it whispers of the past, urging him to delve deeper into the secrets he had unearthed. He lingered at the site, his fingers tracing the edges of the documents, feeling the weight of history. How many lives were altered in these pages? He wondered aloud, the enormity of human consequence settling over him. The discovery brought with it not just answers, but questions that clawed at his conscience. What price was paid for the knowledge contained within these secretive documents? And who had paid it? Do I have the right to expose this? Mark asked himself, knowing the answer wasn't simple. The truth had a way of unraveling lives, creating collateral damage in its wake. Yet the alternative to let these secrets rot in obscurity felt equally wrong. Mark's mind was a battlefield, torn between the desire for justice and the fear of unintended consequences. In his heart, he felt his grandfather's presence, a guiding light in the murk of moral ambiguity.
I owe it to him, Mark resolved, standing up, determination hardening his resolve. I owe it to every person these secrets have touched.
The night air was crisp, stars emerging one by one, silent witnesses to the path Mark had chosen. He gathered the documents, his mind already drafting a plan. He would not be alone in this. Allies would be essential, voices to amplify the truth and shield it from being silenced once more. As Mark drove back through the desert, the darkness pressed in, a reminder of the shadows he was set to confront. The road felt longer now, each mile stretching the weight of responsibility across his shoulders. Alone with his thoughts, Mark pondered the nature of truth and the burden it carried. Was he ready to shoulder it, to face the ripples it would send through his life and the world beyond? Yet beneath the trepidation, there was a spark of hope, a belief in the power of light to dispel darkness, of truth to act as a beacon in a world marred by deceit.
We'll see this through, he murmured to the night, the words forming a promise not only to himself, but to the legacy of his grandfather, and to those who had been silenced for far too long.
As the city lights loomed on the horizon, Mark knew this was only the beginning. The real challenge lay not in uncovering the truth, but in bringing it to light, in navigating the web of power and deceit that sought to keep it hidden. In confronting the past, he was stepping into a future fraught with uncertainty, guided only by the flickering promise of justice and the unyielding force of truth. The city loomed ahead, an expanse of concrete and steel that seemed both familiar and menacing. As Mark entered its boundaries, the cacophony of urban life, the hum of traffic, the distant wail of sirens contrasted sharply with the desert's oppressive silence. Here, anonymity was both a shield and a curse, offering cover but no solace. Gripping the steering wheel, Mark's mind raced through the myriad options before him. Who could he trust? Who would grasp the gravity of what he'd uncovered without being ensnared by its perilous implications? He needed allies, yes, but more than that, he needed a confidant, a person who could see beyond the allure of the secrets for the larger truth they held. There was one name that lingered in his mind, one person who had always walked the line between uncovering the truth and respecting its dangerous potential. Jessica Lantham, a journalist with a reputation for digging into the shadows where others feared to tread. Their history wasn't without its complications, but if anyone could help him navigate this treacherous landscape, it was her. As he parked his car in a quiet alley, the prospect of reaching out filled him with a mix of hope and trepidation. Their last encounter had ended in a heated argument, both of them too stubborn to concede ground. But the stakes were different now. The past grievances felt trivial against the backdrop of what he held in his hands. He pulled his phone from his pocket, fingers hovering over Jessica's number, before pressing call. Each ring was an eternity, each second a testament to the silence that had stretched between them. "Mark?" Her voice came through the receiver, tinged with cautious curiosity. "It's been a while. What do you need?" "Jess, I need to talk. It's important. I found something big. We need to meet." "Same old Mark, always running into the thick of it," she replied, her tone a blend of skepticism and familiarity. "All right, I'm listening. Where do you want to meet?" The meeting was arranged a small, dimly lit cafe on the city's outskirts, a place where they could talk without the prying eyes of the world. As he waited for her to arrive, Mark reviewed the documents once more, his mind a tangle of anticipation and dread. He couldn't help but reflect on their history, how their paths had crossed in the relentless pursuit of stories that others deemed too dangerous or unimportant. They had been kindred spirits once, driven by the same insatiable need to bring truth to light. But the very passions that had drawn them together had also driven them apart, leaving a chasm that now stood between them.
The bell above the cafe door chimed, and there she was, every bit as formidable as he remembered. Her eyes, sharp and discerning, locked onto his, and for a moment the past fell away, leaving only the present and the weight it carried.
"Thank you for coming," he began, sliding the folder across the table toward her. "I need your help with this. It's bigger than anything we've ever tackled." She opened the folder, her expression shifting from curiosity to shock as she skimmed the pages. "Mark, this is explosive. Where on earth did you find this?" "In the desert," he replied, recounting his grandfather's cryptic clues and the journey that had led him there. "I didn't want to believe it at first, but there's no denying what this means. And I can't do it alone, Jess. I need someone who can understand the stakes and help me navigate them." As he spoke, Jessica's skepticism melted into resolve. The enormity of what lay before them was daunting, but together they had faced down giants before. The difference this time was the personal stakes involved, the legacy Mark carried, the justice they both sought. "All right," she said finally, her voice steady. "We'll see this through together, but we need to be smart about it. This kind of truth has teeth, and it won't go down without a fight." With their alliance renewed, they began to plan, each step carefully considered, each possibility weighed. As they plotted their course through the tangled web of secrets and lies, the calf around them faded away, leaving only their shared determination and the promise of what lay ahead. "Whatever it takes," Mark murmured, echoing a sentiment they had shared in another time, another fight. "We're in this together, no turning back." The world outside moved on, oblivious to the tremors of truth slowly building beneath its surface. But for Mark and Jessica, the path was clear, fraught with danger, yet illuminated by the conviction that truth, no matter how buried, would always find its way to light. As they left the cafe, the weight of their decision lingered, not unlike the dim light casting long shadows across the pavement. Mark and Jessica were stepping into a world of uncertainties, each choice potentially upending lives, including their own. "This isn't just a story, Mark. It's a storm, and it could drown us both," she said softly, her eyes scanning the horizon as if seeking answers in the city's distant glow. "I know," he replied, his voice firm, yet there was a vulnerability in his admission. "But isn't it also a chance? A chance to make something right in a world that's spinning out of control?" Their conversation was more than a simple exchange of words. It was a prelude to the battles they would face, both externally and within themselves. The documents Mark had unearthed didn't just hold secrets, they held power. And power always came with a price.
The next day, Jessica sat alone in her apartment, the faint hum of the city outside her window. She had always thrived on uncovering stories that mattered, but this was different. The implications of what they were about to unleash were staggering. And yet, the journalist in her, the truth seeker who had walked the fine line of ethical journalism for years, was irresistibly drawn to the monumental task at hand.
She glanced around her apartment, taking in the sparse furnishings, each piece chosen for utility rather than comfort. It was a space that mirrored her life, focused, determined, yet undeniably solitary. Accepting Mark's request meant more than just reigniting a professional collaboration. It meant revisiting old wounds, facing unfinished business, and perhaps finding closure. With a deep breath, she dialed Mark's number, her fingers steady despite the storm of emotions swirling inside her. "Mark, it's me. I've been thinking we should meet again tomorrow. This isn't something we can do halfway." "Absolutely," Mark replied, a hint of warmth in his voice. "Thank you, Jess. I know this isn't easy, but together we can get through this." As Jessica ended the call, her thoughts drifted to another unresolved chapter of her life. Years ago, she had been involved with someone whose betrayal had left scars, a fellow journalist who had twisted her trust for a story. The memory of that betrayal, of being blindsided by someone she thought she knew, lingered like a shadow she couldn't quite shake. She hadn't spoken to him in years, but their paths were about to cross again. The story Mark had uncovered had ties to this man's past, and whether she liked it or not, she would have to confront him both for the story and for herself. Jessica knew that facing him would not just be a professional necessity, it would be a personal reckoning. But there was strength in reconciling with the past, in understanding the motivations that had led to their fallout. And perhaps, in confronting her own ghosts, she could find a way to move forward without the weight of unresolved anger. As dawn approached, the city slowly awoke, bathed in the cold light of truth yet to be uncovered. For Mark and Jessica, the coming days promised a whirlwind of revelations about the world, each other, and themselves. They would need every ounce of resilience and trust to navigate the labyrinth of power and deceit awaiting them. "It's time," she whispered to the morning light streaming through her window, a vow to herself and to the truth that lay in waiting. With resolve hardening into determination, she prepared to dive headfirst into a story that could reshape everything they thought they knew. The morning light crept into Jessica's apartment, painting the walls with a soft golden hue. It was a quiet awakening, yet beneath its serenity lay a current of anticipation, like the charged stillness before a storm. She stood by the window, sipping her coffee, the warmth soothing her as she rehearsed what she might say to him, the man who had once been both confidant and adversary. Her past with him was a tapestry of shared dreams and painful truths, and the prospect of seeing him again stirred emotions she had long thought dormant. Their relationship had been fraught with the kind of intensity that only true passion and betrayal could engender. He had been everything to her once, a partner in crime in both love and journalism, but his ambition had eclipsed his integrity, leaving her to pick up the pieces of her trust. The thought of confronting him was daunting, but necessary. This wasn't just about reopening old wounds. It was about understanding, closure, and perhaps reclaiming a part of herself she had lost in the fallout. She needed to know if he had changed, if the man who had shattered her trust could now become an ally in uncovering a story that had roots tangled deep in both their pasts.
She set her mug down with a decisive thud, a gesture that mirrored her internal resolve. The stakes were too high to be clouded by personal history. This was bigger than them, more significant than the pain of the past. It was about truth, and truth demanded courage.
While Jessica wrestled with her ghosts, Mark was navigating his own labyrinth of uncertainty. He stood on his balcony, staring at the city sprawled beneath him, a chaotic expanse of stories waiting to be told. Mark had always seen himself as a crusader of sorts, a truth-teller in a world mired by deception. But this story was different. It was personal, intimate, and fraught with moral ambiguity. The documents he had acquired were a Pandora's box of secrets, their contents promising both destruction and liberation. He couldn't shake the feeling that they were on the precipice of something monumental, a revelation that could either cleanse or consume. For both Jessica and Mark, the road ahead was not just about uncovering truths hidden in the shadows of power. It was about confronting the truths they had buried within themselves, the compromises they had made, and the ideals they had sacrificed.
As she left her apartment, Jessica felt the familiar weight of her journalist's satchel resting against her hip. It was a tangible reminder of her purpose, grounding her in the chaotic swirl of emotions as she headed towards an uncertain meeting.
The city, ever indifferent to the dramas of its inhabitants, moved with its usual rhythm, a backdrop to the impending confrontation. For Jessica, the day promised the uncomfortable yet necessary reconciliation of past and present, a collision of personal history and professional duty. As she walked, the city seemed to pulse with energy, a living, breathing entity that mirrored her own tumultuous thoughts. This was her city, her stage, and she was ready to play her part, whatever the cost. Mark and Jessica were bound by more than just the story. They were tied to a shared destiny, a path carved out by their choices and the truths they sought to uncover. Their journey was a testament to the resilience of those who dared to seek truth in a world that often preferred the comfort of lies.
She knew the road would be fraught with challenges, that it would test not just their mettle, but their very sense of self. Yet, there was an undeniable strength in the clarity of purpose, and Jessica was ready to confront whatever lay in wait.
As the sun climbed higher, casting sharp shadows across the city's landscape, the stage was set for an unfolding drama of truth, redemption, and the inescapable pull of the past. For Jessica and Mark, the next chapter was about to begin, and with it, the promise of discovery, resolution, and perhaps a chance at redemption. The end. Thank you for listening. Please subscribe, ring the bell, and tell your friends about My Listening Library.